On Christmas night in 1945, a tragic incident occurred in West Virginia, USA, which still sends chills down people's spines when remembered. George Sodder, a man of great repute, was celebrating Christmas with his wife, Jenny Sodder, and their 10 lovely children. Every face in the house was glowing with happiness. But little did they know that this night was about to turn into a terrible nightmare, a nightmare that remains unsolved to this day. It happened around AM, when a fire suddenly broke out in the house. George and Jenny, along with 4 of their children, managed to escape, but 5 children, who were sleeping in the upper rooms, disappeared forever. Neither their bodies nor any bones were ever found. Did they really burn to death in the fire? Or were they kidnapped? Was the fire truly an accident? Or was it part of a larger plan? This is not just a story, but a mystery that still baffles the world. Let us try to understand every aspect of this unsolved mystery. George Sodder was a hard-working Italian immigrant who was strongly opposed to the Italian dictator Benito Mussolini. That's why he had to leave Italy and settle in the United States. Speaking openly against Mussolini could have meant trouble for him, but George was never afraid to speak his mind. In America, he ran a trucking business, and fortunately, he also had his own house. His wife, Jenny Sodder, was a dedicated housewife who raised their children with love and discipline. On December 24, 1945, Christmas Day, the Sodder children were playing with their new toys. As night fell, 5 children went to sleep in the upper room. Around AM, Jenny smelled smoke in the house. Upon checking, she found that a fire had broken out in the kitchen. George and Jenny rushed out with their 4 children, but the 5 children sleeping upstairs were left inside. George tried desperately to rescue them. When he ran to the 2nd floor window, he realized that the ladder had gone missing. He thought of using his coal truck to reach the window, but when he tried to start it, the truck wouldn't start, and the other truck wasn't working either. The people who were there tried to call the fire department, but unfortunately, no one answered. It wasn't until hours later that they managed to contact the fire chief, but the fire brigade arrived too late. Everyone assumed the 5 children had perished in the fire, but this case was far more complicated than it seemed at first. The next morning, when the investigation began, officials also gave the same statement, claiming that the children had died in the fire. But this explanation didn't make sense because human bones can't turn to ash, even at 800 degrees Celsius. Especially bones containing calcium, like human teeth, don't burn away even in a furnace. So how could it be that 5 children's bodies were completely missing from the fire, with no trace left behind? Later, forensic investigations confirmed that the fire's duration was too short to have burned the children's bones to ash. This raised more questions, leading the Sodder family to reject the investigation's conclusion. The investigation team had suggested a short circuit in the kitchen was the cause of the fire, but George Sodder insisted that he had recently installed new wiring, and it was impossible that there was any fault. As George thought back to the incident, he remembered some strange details that hinted at foul play. For example, when he tried to call the fire department, he discovered the phone line had been cut. Investigations confirmed that someone had indeed cut the phone line from outside, as a clean cut from pliers was evident. But how did the kidnapper manage to escape with the children amidst all the commotion? Some months earlier, George had received a visit from an insurance agent who had pressured him into taking out an insurance policy for the house. When George refused, the agent threatened him, saying that he would realize the consequences when a fire broke out in his house. Could the fire have been deliberately set to distract everyone while the children were abducted? Another theory suggested that George's open opposition to Mussolini had angered the Italian mafia, and they might have targeted him and kidnapped his children. Some people claimed to have seen the Sodder children in various places. One woman said she saw them in a hotel with a strange couple, while other reports suggested they were seen being taken away by strangers. George and Jenny spent their lives trying to uncover the truth. They spared no effort and followed every possible lead. They even put up a large billboard with pictures of their missing children and a reward offer. About 20 years later, in 1960, Jenny received a letter with a photo of a man who looked very much like their son Louis. The letter simply read, Lula sighed, "I love brother Frankie." Could this letter have been written by one of the missing children? Or was it just a prank? George and Jenny hired a private detective to investigate the letter, but no trace of Louis Sauter was ever found. Years went by, and the mystery remained unsolved. George Sauter passed away in 1969, but Jenny and the surviving children continued searching for answers. Even after George's death, Jenny stayed in the family home, surrounding it with fencing and building new rooms. For the rest of her life, she wore black clothes as a symbol of her grief. After Jenny's death in 1989, the family took down the old billboard they had put up for the missing children. Were the children victims of a tragedy, or part of a larger conspiracy? This remains a mystery that may never be solved. We hope you like and share this video from Jam TV.